Welcome to Rotten Damians, the YouTube channel where we review horror movies and discuss potential film theories. Today we are discussing Cabin Fever 3, Patient Zero. I'm pretty sure by now you know the drill of these movies. We have a young cast who engage in debauchery and hedonism. They contract a flesh-eating disease and slowly die. The third movie has a big increase in budget, going from 1.5 mil to a whopping 7 mil. You can see the increase in camera quality, cinematography, editing, and location. But unfortunately, the bigger budget could not buy a better story. The movie is better than part 2, but it's nowhere near the glory of the original. And we have no Winston.
Black, man.
It is intended to be a prequel, and it's much darker, with less humor than the previous two. It was written by Jake Wade Wall and directed by Kaare Andrews. The movie begins with a man crying on the phone, speaking in a raspy voice, calling the cops. He is upset and tells the police that his whole family is dead. Apparently, they melted and there is blood everywhere. The phone call is overlaid with slow motion clips of guys in hazmat suits trying to contain the spread of the disease and bring the phone call guy into custody. It's very creepy and sets the dark feel for the movie. We are then introduced to our cast of throwaway characters, meaning their main purpose is to be killed off. We don't build an emotional connection with them because they are simply there to kill. The lead doctor is Dr. Edwards. He is trying to find a cure for the disease, and his two assistants are named Bridgett, the blonde, and Camila, the brunette. The hazmat guys succeed in capture Porter, our phone call man, also known as Patient Zero. Being Patient Zero, he carries the disease, but it does not affect him. So, he passed the disease on to his wife and kids, murdering them, while he remained unaffected. They are holding Porter against his will, in hopes of using his blood to find a cure. Bridgett drops a mouse. This will be an important detail later. We then switch to the Caribbean, where we meet our new protagonists. They are all there for Marcus's wedding. This is Marcus with the longer hair and Dobbs with the shorter hair. They run a business together. Marcus is our new Paul, meaning the hero, whilst Dobbs is our new Jeff, meaning the coward. Those two are Penny and Josh. They are obviously dating. Josh is Marcus's younger brother and also our new Bert.
Alright, who ate all the pussy? This guy.
Except he's actually lovable. Penny is Marcus's childhood best friend, and they used to sleep together. It's a nice spin on the classic best friend love interest. Penny is also our new Marcy. If you don't understand whom I'm comparing our main cast to, go watch part 1 of the series, bro. I'll link it in the information card, and it'll be linked in the description down below. Back at the lab, Porter has grabbed a spring that he uses to cut his hand open, spilling that lovely infected blood. He waits patiently for the guys in the hazmat suits to come draw his blood. Once they enter his little cage, he grabs one of them, tearing open the suit and shoving his bloody hand into his face, infecting him. This leads to a security breach and a 48-hour lockdown, calling for all the staff in the building to enter an isolation chamber. Our protagonists hop onto a boat for Marcus's bachelor party. Marcus kind of annoys me in these scenes. He just seems fake when he refuses to chug a beer with his friends and rather sip it.
When I was 19, now I drink for flavor.
Like, come on, you pretentious douche. Josh gets him a present. I guess Marcus and his soon-to-be wife are going to be exploring the BBC channel later. Josh goes out to try his new toy, and Penny follows him. Just kidding. He's trying to escape his own bachelor party because he's a changed man. Penny tries to seduce him despite it being his bachelor party. I strongly dislike her because not only is she being a homewrecker, but she's also using Josh to get to Marcus.
Josh is fun.
Marcus shuts her down and decides he'd rather sip his beer for the flavor than ruin things with his wife. Good for him. Their boat trip comes to an end when they arrive at their destination, so they can
Get high as a motherfucker.
Predictably, it's the same island where they're holding Patient Zero. Penny and Josh go diving to catch the team dinner, but there's no fish to be seen.
Where are all the fish?
Again, predictably, the virus has seeped into the water, killing all the fish and infecting Josh and Penny. I wonder what the team are going to eat now. I know the disease is sorted with all the skin lying around, but what about the others? Beer diet it is. Penny goes into the tent because seeing all the dead fish upset her, and her skin has started to break out into halves. It's only a matter of time before Josh presents symptoms too. I wonder why it infected her first. Maybe because she's smaller. Back at the lab, Dr. Edwards and Bridgett are testing a cure on the guy that Porter infected. Bridgett doesn't have a hazmat suit because they are all locked away. Remember, they're in lockdown. But it's okay,
Do you trust me?
With my life.
Probably shouldn't. She holds the infected guy down and he pukes into her face. Told you she shouldn't trust him. She exits the room and locks the doctor in there. Good for her. Then she slow-mo runs to a shower. It's probably not the best time to move so slowly. She eventually gets to the shower, but it's probably too late anyway. This is why I feel bad for Josh. He's corny and vile, but he's a good guy and he cares for Penny.
I'm gonna go get the first aid kit and everything's gonna be okay. Okay?
Penny doesn't deserve him. This scene is also kinda gross. Josh, the caring guy, decides to take care of Penny with his mouth, but due to the disease, it turns her to medium rare, and we get a nasty view of her lady bits spread on Josh's face. She then projectile vomits on him. It's good to see, during all three of these movies, they never abandoned the blood vomit. Dobbs and Marcus head to look for help on the island. They are going to the lab holding patient 0. While Marcus and Dobbs are gone, Josh rubs himself with alcohol, trying to kill/prevent the spread of the disease. Penny comes out to see where he is.
You're back in the motherfucking tent!
Okay, I won't lie, the only reason I included this scene is to hear Josh say that iconic line. Josh begins speaking to Dr. Edwards on the walkie-talkie, and he tells Josh to come to the lab so that they can cure him and Penny. He has also started presenting symptoms, hence the hives on the neck. Marcus and Dobbs make it into the lab, which looks severely run down since we last saw it. There is no electricity and blood is splattered everywhere. There's also someone or something in the lab with them. In a scene of suspense, the two guys begin looking around, find him or it. The directors give us a jump scare with flickering lights. I think this is the first jump scare we've had in all three movies. The thing stalking them is an infected employee with a gun. Okay, this is where the movie lost me. It was doing incredibly well up to this point, but the directors swayed too far from the original cabin fever disease. You're still human with the disease, it's just slowly killing you. But in this movie, it's almost as if you are infected, you become a zombie. They look violent and mentally slow, like all they can do is kill. The guys run trying to escape the zombie, and Dobbs accidentally runs into the isolation chamber, where all the employees went to wait out the 48-hour shutdown. All the employees are either dead or infected and covered in a small pool of water, which Dobbs just ran into, meaning he's now infected. At least part 3 has more creative methods of infecting characters. I was sick of the contaminated drinking water thing. Dobbs freaks out and one of the infected doctor zombies stands up. See what I mean? It's tacky. Like, dude, you're still human. Your skin is just being eaten. The movie also loses the plot here because it shifts its focus to gore, but it does it in a very over-the-top and tacky manner. For an example, Dobbs runs into an infected security guard zombie. The guard shoots at Dobbs, but because he's weak from the disease, his arm snaps off and the gun stabs him in the skull, killing him. Dobbs keeps running and eventually meets up with Josh and Marcus. Josh came to the lab as instructed by Dr. Edwards. We enter the lab and we see Bridgett is wearing a face mask, under which we see that she was infected after all. In this scene, we basically have Bridgett and Dr. Edwards trying to rip off the guys and steal their boat. So Marcus comes up with a plan to split up.
Let's split up!
They divide themselves into 3 groups, the first group being Josh and Bridgett, the second group being Dobbs and Edwards, and the last group being Marcus, Porter, and Camila. Camila is the only one worth trusting. She actually wants a cure and for everyone to survive. Josh and Bridgett head to check on Penny, but obviously it's a ruse. Bridgett gives a jaw-dropping performance by smashing Josh in the face, destroying his jaw and killing him. Pun intended, you know, because his jaw literally fell off. Bridgett makes her way to the boat, but Penny intervenes, having some jaw trouble herself. The two of them embark on an incredibly gory fight scene where they practically rip each other apart. They eventually land up in the tent where Penny bashes Bridget's skull in with the black dildo. The fight scene is almost 4 minutes long and it's incredibly pointless. I love gore, but I really struggle to watch the scene. It was disgusting. I feel like the directors don't know what they wanted to do with this movie. It's like they started with a serious, dark intro, then they transitioned into zombies, and in the last 20 minutes of the movie, they remembered, oh, this is a cabin fever movie, and switched to slapstick over-the-top gore. It's terrible. Penny also dies during the fight. Dobbs begins breaking out in the red rash, and Edward sees it.
If you want to survive this virus, you've got to let me assess its progress.
Dobbs, desperate for help, drops his gun, hoping to be healed, but Edwards sucker punches him, takes the gun, and kills him. He then hits us with the one-liner he's been waiting the whole movie to deliver.
Turns out your condition is fatal.
At least our A-team have success and managed to stop the leak into the ocean, meaning it could potentially stop the spread of the disease. Porter, the immune humane, steps into the contaminated water to turn the valve, closing the pipe leading to the ocean. He's got a whole good guy act going on, and it kinda makes him likable. The A-team catch up with Edwards, fueled by the murder of Marcus's dead brother and friends. Edwards shoots Marcus in the stomach and they begin a standoff where Edwards gives his whole psycho speech.
All you have to do is follow my lead.
He wants to leave the others for dead and escape with Camila. He says if the disease spreads and breaks out into a pandemic and they cure it, they'll be set for life. Porter eventually hears enough and shoots Edwards. Damn bro, it took you long enough. The A-team make it back to the boat and nice guy Porter.
Thought you guys could use a drink.
They obviously haven't seen the first two cabin fevers. You never trust the bottled water. They both drink it and notice that Porter put his blood into the water, meaning these two are now infected. Porter kills the captain and escapes on a dinghy. Okay, so to break it down, Porter just killed everyone that knows he's a carrier, so he can now go back to mainland and continue with a normal life, infecting anyone he comes into contact with. During the end credits, the directors tried to transform this movie into an artsy mindfuck type. They obviously forgot that their artsy movie had a 4-minute murderous fight scene that had nothing to do with the movie. Remember the mouse Bridgett dropped earlier? Porter grabbed that mouse and smothered it in his carrier blood. He then let it go. The mouse entered the isolation chamber during the 48-hour lockdown, infecting all of those employees. Porter then stole the radio from the guy in the hazmat suit that he infected and spoke to Josh and his friends, telling them to come to the lab, which ultimately led to his escape. Basically, Nice Guy Porter was an elaborate genius who planned his escape to the T. Why this needed to be added to the movie, I have no idea. I'm just glad that we are finally done with the cabin fever movies. Okay, my review. The movie was horrible. The directors had no idea which direction they wanted to head in. It's like they wanted to make a deep and ominous movie, then they got tired of that, so they made it into a zombie movie, and then the employer came down to them and was like, hey, this can't be zombies, it's cabin fever. So they added the 4-minute fight scene, and then in the end, to try salvage their terrible movie, they tried to f your mind. Had they just stuck to one of these aspects for their movie, maybe it would have been decent. Cabin Fever 3 is better than the sequel, but it's still pretty bad. I'll give it 3 Rotten Damians out of 10. Thank you for watching, and remember,
Get back!